I will read out some lines from expanding trade and defense relationship to ensuring maritime security and freedom of navigation, from countering terrorist networks to promoting clean energy and sustainable development. The US and India share a wide range of critical national interests. Our partnership is deep. It touches nearly every endeavor of human pursuit, and it has produced important gains for each of our countries. It's said by somebody who might be ambassador of the US in this country after a few weeks. Now, would you like to comment all these things are happening?
So Chilean sat sat. I think that's absolutely true. I think to support, in a sense, what Sashi said, I think that's been true for a long time. I think the difference is, as I said earlier, the speed with which it's being done, the depth with which it's being done, and the fact that it's being done and admitted in public. I think that is a very large change. The fact is that the India-US doesn't grow at night only anymore. India-US can now grow in the full 24 hours a day. I think that is a really wonderful thing. I think it builds on the work that others have done previously, and we shouldn't forget that. But I think it's important to recognize that it is a change. And I think it's interesting, Rajiv mentioned the elites and sort of getting elites to admit to things. I think it's interesting when you look at the people-to-people relationships and the business-to-business relationships, they've been going on for a long time. This year, again, we have over 100,000 Indian students studying in the United States. For years, we've had India has been the second largest and previously the largest country sending foreign students to the United States. For years, we've had Indians settling in the United States, contributing to business there, coming back and investing and working in India, going back and forth. The business and people-to-people relationship has been strong. For years, if you went into the furthest remote village in Andhra Pradesh and asked somebody what is the US dollar to rupee exchange rate, they would know immediately because they all had a relative in the US, they all went back and forth. So I think what's changed now is that we are seeing a very public engagement at carrying that partnership forward and that improvement forward. And I think inviting the president to Republic Day is a major step in that step. One thing I did want to say, because it's come up frequently, is this question of technology transfer and the defense partnership. I think the fact is there has been huge progress made, which is really not recognized publicly in terms of the ease with which technology can now be transferred to India, the depth and the real technological level of the commercial exchanges between India and the United States is equal to that of our major partners. That's why now we're talking about DTTI, the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, where we will work with India to co-produce, co-develop in India, make in India, different defense systems. That is a really major step when it comes to technology transfer and when it comes to really showing the partnership, the equal partnership between India and the United States in terms of export controls, in terms of technological development, mechanical development, and in terms of defense cooperation. So I think it's important to recognize the sorts of advances that have happened. And the fact is that now what we're all talking about is how do you take those advances to the next step. So I think if we look at what's been done, we look at what is changing, there's really room for nothing but confidence. Now, as has been said, does a lot remain to be done to do in order to implement this vision? Absolutely. India has things that India is working on in terms of liberalizing the economy and opening up to the rest of the global economy so that people can make in India. I think the US has taken a lot of important strides to increase the business ties and the government-to-government ties, but there's more that we want to do as well. And I think the pace and the range of the visits and the talks that we're seeing indicate that is moving forward. I I think, again, whether you want to use the specific word paradigm, whether it's, I like the ambassador's words about trend setting. I think that is actually a very good phrase. But ultimately, the core truth is the partnership has been there. It has, as President Obama said, as others have said, it has been one of the defining partnerships, and we only see it growing. And we finally see everybody sort of admitting to it, and I think that is a very good thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, lastly, we come back to you, sir. Last time you couldn't address some questions which I asked about strategic concerns, whether stronger relation with the US give leeway to India to deal with China or Pakistan, Afghanistan. And I will also like to read some comments. Somebody said, strong Republican support for India in the US Congress, the new tension, America's ties with China and Russia, and unfolding geopolitical flux in Middle East and Asia make it possible for Modi and Obama to boldly reimagine the bilateral partnership. This is a concluding remark. You might even take 1 minute, 2 minutes more.
Well, thank you. Let's look at the next summit, which is coming up. Do we expect spectacular results? I think not. Not because there is lack of intention, but if you have two summits within a gap of 4 months, it's not likely that much would have been achieved before the last one, before you can take stock of what they can do next. There are two formidable problems that we have. One is, and I hate to admit it, the bureaucracies on both sides. When I went to Washington the first time and again the second time, I was confident that we had the most matchless bureaucracy in the world. There could be nobody equal to us. I hated to admit that the Americans have found a match for our bureaucracy. Rule for rule, sub-rule for sub-rule, comma by comma. We've found our match in the American bureaucracy. Now, whether the two leaders can whip their bureaucracies to produce results in 4 months, I'm not so sanguine. But I know Mr. Modi is a slave driver. I think he can. He has already put in a lot of spirit into the bureaucracy. Perhaps he'll be able to achieve it. I can't speak for President Obama. The other problem we have is legislative. Now, Mr. Modi doesn't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. And you can see that he has promised that he will get the insurance bill passed. But that promise, I don't know. We have to see whether he can actually achieve it. Because it requires a majority in the Rajya Sabha, which the BJP does not have. Now, if Mr. Modi does not succeed in passing the insurance bill, which is an important plank for India's second-generation economic reforms, opening up insurance to FDI to 49%, I think he will fall flat on his face by the time President Obama comes. Therefore, there is a problem here. On the American side, President Obama has lost control of the Congress and faces a hostile Congress. Not that it can tie his hands in terms of foreign policy, but certainly it gives him less confidence to make commitments for the United States if the Congress is not behind him. And finally, I think a minor issue, but Washington goes on holidays during December and much of January. And therefore, I don't know whether there is enough time for the bureaucracies on both sides to actually produce results by the time the two leaders meet. Now, what do I think will be the top of the agenda in January? Firstly, the Defense Cooperation Agreement, I think, will be given final shape. And here, I think, the announcement that Ashton Carter is going to be the next Defense Secretary of the United States is actually good news for India. Nobody knows India better than Ashton Carter. He came last year with a set of at least 10 proposals for joint manufacture and joint development in India. Unfortunately, he went back empty-handed. This time, I think the number has gone up to 37, I understand. I don't know what's the latest figure. But if Ashton Carter is at the helm there and we have a new defense minister here, there's great hope that the next 10-year cooperation agreement will be really meaningful for India. Then you have the business side. We've heard from Gurcharan and Rajiv about the prospects there. Mr. Modi has flagship projects, and already Mr. Obama has got the enthusiasm, bullet trains, smart cities, clean rivers, big projects which will change the face of India. I think the Americans are also enthused that they have the technology and they have the capability of helping India in some of these big projects. I think we should hear more about that. There will be more consultations on the region, on Afghanistan, on Pakistan, because what we saw during Mr. Modi's last visit was, for the first time, a real convergence of views on Afghanistan. And for the first time, we heard an Indian Prime Minister speak openly and frankly, almost critically, of an important foreign policy program of the United States. He, in his address to the Council for Foreign Relations in New York, Prime Minister Modi said he thought the Americans had withdrawn too early from Iraq, and he hoped that same thing would not happen in Afghanistan. I think there is emerging a convergence of views that did not exist in the past. That's good news. There will be talks on Pakistan, and I'm sure Mr. Modi has scored a great deal for the Indian views on Pakistan when the terrorist groups were named there. Therefore, we hope there will be more consultations. President Obama will try to draw Mr. Modi into greater support against the ISIL, and Mr. Modi has met him halfway by mentioning it, but not actually saying we'll join the coalition. Focus on security will be there in the Indo-Pacific area. This is an emerging area of cooperation. Cyber security is also coming up as a big issue, a big area of cooperation. Possible compromise on the Climate Change Pact. I mean, encouraged by the success that President Obama has had with China, I think he's going to try it with India and see if India can also come to some kind of understanding by next year on a global pact for climate change. And then finally, I think these are the legacy issues, both for Mr. Modi and for President Obama. President Obama believes in nuclear disarmament. We'll certainly talk about that. He believes in new energy, clean energy, green energy. He's going to pursue that. Climate change is another issue. And I'm sure President Obama would be anxious to secure that. From Mr. Modi's side, I think he's made so many promises that he has to fulfill them and make it a part of his legacy. I think what Mr. Modi finally wants to do is what is there in the BJP manifesto on foreign affairs. A resurgent India must find its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. And I think that's what Mr. Modi is planning to do. Next summit is probably going to establish that, yes, we have the support of the global leaders for a resurgent India. India will find its rightful place. And as a corollary, Mr. Modi is also going to find his place amongst the statesmen of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Clap for the panelists.